Hey everyone, it's Susie Lee with Ballerina Boutique. Come on in. So what I did was I had bought a couple of these frames, and so I took the back out. I gave it 3 coats of Fusion Mineral Paint in the white so that it would cover very, very well. And I love this. This went country western, and it looks very country western, but it could be shabby chic as well, right? So what I'm going to do is I am going to take this and I am going to paint it more of an abstract background. So anyway, we've got this nice freshly painted in white infusion mineral paint. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do kind of a more of a pastel background. I've got some paints, I've been playing in them here, just, dabbling in them and coming up with some color combinations and seeing what I like, seeing what works, that kind of thing. I'm going to add more to this. I'm going to add a little bit more Casement Fusion Mineral Paint to the palette here because I like mixing it. I like mixing that and letting that be my neutral and coming up with different hues in my paint. So what we have here is we have this ceramic coat in Laguna Blue, Christmas green. It also has this moon yellow. We got a little moon yellow, and I'm not going to use a whole lot of that. But we have this, it says it's metallic. It says that it's rouge, red, but it's more of a pinky color. You see that color there? It's more, I know it's looking really red on the screen, but in reality, it is very pinkish, like a dark pink is what it is. I have a metallic going on here. Well, I did have a metallic going on here. I'm going to use that sparingly in the end, I think. And I'm going to use this blue here. I'm going to add some more. It's like a metallic light ice blue, they call it, ice blue. So I'm going to throw some more of that on down on the palette. And what else? And that is it, I think, for now. If I need more of a gold metallic, I've got this one on standby. This one is just called Champagne Gold, and I like it. I might mix it with this gold here. This is Glorious Gold and Champagne Gold. Could only make for a wonderful cocktail. Right? All right, so let's just get to getting here and see what we end up with. I love painting like this because I have no idea how it's going to turn out. You start with a blank slate, and that's always fun.
Okay, so let's get this show on the road. I don't want this to be boring, so I sped it up just enough so it's not boring and that you can still see what I'm doing. The first thing we're going to do is lay down a background. And I showed you the color palette, and it's going to be a pastel background, starting out with a little bit of the darker aqua, and that's going to get really toned down later on with the white and the blending technique that I'm going to show you. But I end up picking up some of the lighter blue and just continuing across with this, what I call a slap-it-on brush. But I do have that blending brush that I really, really like. It's very beat up, and I keep it just to do the pouncing technique with. It really helps to blend the colors. Now you can use a stipple brush to do the same thing, but I do like using that little slap-it-on brush that I've beat the heck out of over the years. It really does the job well for me. Coming in with a little bit of that dark pink and adding that in, just a little streak of it. It really looks cool when you blend it in with a little bit of white. And as you can see, this is quickly coming together, the background of our painting. And I would ask you to forgive my stuffiness. I'm fighting a little bit of a cold. Once we get it all covered, we're going to do a little bit more stippling and a whole lot of blending. This technique is all about the blending. It gives it a soft effect, an ethereal effect, if you will. And although it takes time and patience, in the end, it really turns out beautifully. Okay, now we have a base coat on, and we're going to go in with a smaller brush and a little bit of white. And we're just going to stipple in some lighter white color in here just to brighten up a couple spots. And then I'm going to go in with a little bit of green and I'm going to blend that. And what you're going to see here is there's no line of demarcation anywhere on here. It's all going to be blended. Every single color that I add to this board is going to be blended so as to just look like color shadows, if you will. Now, where you see some green, that might be a good place to add some foliage in the painting. And where you see some pinks and some yellows, that might be a place where you might put your flowers. And I always like to use a little bit of metallics in my painting, especially around the edges. And I also go in at the end and add final touches. I add gold metallics, but right here I'm adding just a little bit of gold acrylic paint around the edges and just blending it in. And you'll notice I don't really change the brush or clean the brush. I just go right in with the color that was on before it. I rarely dip it into the water unless it gets really mucked up, but I kind of go with it. I just stipple it until there's really hardly any more paint on it, and then I go into my next color. And as you can see, that works out really well. It just looks like an ethereal background, which is what I'm going for. Next, I'm going to pick up 3 colors, the white and the hot pink and the blue, and I'm just going to go in and create 3 illusions of the start of a flower. And I'm going to do a little trio of them. So I'm just creating the background of the flower here with the light white and pink mixed together with that dark pink. It makes it a light pink. And now you can see there's 3 areas where there will be three little flowers. Kind of darkening up that blue there a little bit to give it some shading, a little bit of shadowing, and a little bit of white for some highlights. Planning on doing some writing on this piece later on, so keeping it on the lighter side will make the writing stand out more. And now I'm just layering some of the darker colors in a little bit darker, especially that green there, and blending that out. And I'm going to keep adding some little bits of white here and there just to keep it on the light and bright side. When you look at a sky, it has all kinds of colors in it. And sometimes you'll even see some pinks or some oranges through the sky. And I'm going for some more muted tones for my background. This will be abstract flowers on a soft muted background. So can you see where it would be a good thing to put maybe 3 flowers or 3 little bunches of flowers on this piece where I've kind of made 3 little round cloud-like circles gathered together? That's what we're going to do. So I'm going to grab up a little bit of the white and some of that pink, and I'm going to start creating the center of the flowers, just stippling it in with my little brush, a little round spot to represent the center of that flower. And I'm keeping it a little bit on the dark side. Next, you're going to see me create a little bit lighter color hue of pink, and I'm going to go in and create like little parentheses or letter C's, I call them, around the circle, and I'm separating them. So you'll see one little letter C, then a space, and another letter C, and then another one. So I'll do 3 of them, and then I'll go out around the edge of that and do some more. And what that's doing is it's creating the petals of the flower. Then I do it again. Next, I go in and I mute just below that grouping, little parentheses or those little letter C's, just a little bit, so it softens the edges. and makes it have that muted look that I'm going for. And I just keep doing that until I get the size flower that I want. And then I go back in and add highlights and shading both under and over the petals. And if you happen to start losing the shape of the petal or whatever, you can just go in there with a little bit darker pink and make it shaded, or a little white and highlight it. It's so easy to do and very forgiving. I like to stipple over each petal with my small brush, making sure that it's blended really well. You want those flower petals to just look like a little whisper. Nothing heavy, just everything soft, soft, soft. And I keep playing with the color hues and the different tones. Um, Sometimes when you see a grouping of roses on a bush, um, they have different colors and different values in them, depending on how open the flower is and what stage of the blooming process it's in. So sometimes you'll see some really pretty pinks, and you might even see a little bit of yellow or green in the center. And so I even do that. I even put a little bit of yellow in the center just to give it all the colors that you might see in nature, all the colors that you might see in a blooming flower. And something else you're going to see me do when I add the white, I use Fusion Mineral Paint in the casement white. So it's a real bright white, and it's highly pigmented. So it really stands out. And I go in with the white, but I always, always blend it right at those edges just to make sure that it softens the petal. So you'll see me make a white streak and then I go right over it with that stippling process, and I just blend the heck out of it right into the background. So you'll see me make a white streak and then I go right over it and blend it. And each petal is slightly separated. In other words, I'm not making a scallop where the paintbrush doesn't leave the board. I make that little parenthesis or that little C, and then I pick up my brush and go, oh, a quarter inch over or so, and I make another one, and then I do it again. So I have like a trio of those little C's to make the petal, and then I go to the next grouping and do the same. So that's how the petals are formed. And then, of course, I go in, like I said, and make sure that they are all blended out really well. It's quite a process. It does take time, and that's why I'm doing this sped up version so you can see the process and hopefully comprehend the way I'm doing this. And did you know you can make your screen bigger if you're watching on a PC? You can just make your screen bigger so you can see this a little bit more close up by enlarging your screen. Now this is pretty light here. I know it's kind of hard to see, but they're light little petals and there is a slight separation between them. They're not really just pink clouds. Now I'm grabbing my well-loved Slap It On brush, and as you can see, it's very old and beat up. And I'm just going to go in here and try and darken up those centers a little bit and give them a little bit more color in the center. And you can see I'm still stippling, still doing the stippling technique. Pouncing, stippling, same thing, right? And now you can see that there's some dark centers in there. Here I've created a little bit of a lighter pink just to go in and reshape some of those petals with the stippling technique and soften every edge. Once that's done, I'm going to grab a script liner brush and I'm going to grab up a darker color and just redefine those petals a little bit. I'm going to go in and make some of those little C's all the way around with a darker color pink, and it's going to just redefine everything and make the petals stand out like they should. Because sometimes in the process of creating the petals, in the stippling, you lose the shape of the flower. So it's okay to go back in and redefine them a little bit with some shading or some highlighting. As I said, this process is very forgiving. And don't forget to use the tools that God gave you. Sometimes you can just use your finger to what they call shear. That's a shearing technique that kind of just softens the edge as well. You can use just a little bit of water on your finger and go in and shear those petals and soften them on the edges. Acrylic paint can be reconstituted with water so you can move it about if need be. Just a little water on your finger and shearing technique. Now you'll see me grab up some of that yellow, and I'm just going to use a script liner brush and add some little dots in the center of the flower. Remember I said you'll see all different kinds of colors in a blooming flower. Sometimes little streaks of green, sometimes pinks and yellows, especially in the veining of a rose. And here you'll even see me add just a little bit of sheared yellow in the petal of the rose. It just gives it a lot of depth and color. I love that look. And this is such a process. It's part technique and part what you see with your eye and what looks good to you. You need to just learn to play with your paints, get familiar with them, know what they can do and what they can't do. Play with color and hues and different values. I think dabbling in my paints is one of the most fun crafts I enjoy. And I don't do it real frequently, but I do enjoy it a lot. And hopefully here you can see some of the slight yellow tones coming up in that rose petal and how it just gave it a little bit more depth and character. Here now I'm going to mix in some of the white paint with a little bit of that green, and I'm going to create the illusion of a leaf with my script liner brush. And to do that, I just create the shape of a leaf, and then I go in with my other brush and stipple it to soften it, because you don't want any firm line on any of this painting. Everything is soft. Everything is softened with the stippling brush. Just as there's an illusion of a flower, there's an illusion of a leaf here. And that's one of the reasons I stippled in some of that green on the background, because I want that to serve as kind of some foliage in the background. Now, in the end with this painting, I do go in and create some shadowing under the leaves, and they do become a little bit darker, some shadowing underneath the petals of the flower, and it does become more pronounced. And in the finishing touches of the piece, I add more foliage and just some little, what I call dots and doodads. Um, they look like foliage. They look like perhaps some buds and flowers and some maybe pollen floating in the air. But the final touches is where I add all of that in. So this is a layering process, starting from the ground up with the background and then adding the illusion of the flowers and the leaves, and then going back in and adding some shading and shadowing you'll see it looks completely different in the end result than what you're seeing here. And it's hard to do something like this in a 1 hour segment. That's why I'm speeding it up so that you can see and not get bored with the process of me doing this stippling. When you're doing it yourself, it's not boring because you're creating and your eye is being drawn to the piece and what you're going to do next. But watching it is another story. So um, you have to be patient and trust the process, as they say. Good things do come to those who wait. And personally, I love the process from creating your color palette that's going to go on your background and seeing where your painting is going to go on top, putting a plan together and executing it. And I think the finishing touches might be my favorite part. Those little details are what brings the piece all together in the end. And yes, I do fuss a lot, blending and adding shadows and highlights, then shearing them back into the piece to soften, then repeat. This is what gives your flower personality. This is what makes it your own. It's how you want to see your flower. If you don't like this soft effect, then you can paint yours with more definition. You don't have to like the way I do it. That's what makes the art world so unique, right? Okay, so once I get my bigger flowers where I like them, for now anyway, I'm going to be fussing a little bit more later, right? Then I grab a script liner brush and I decided to add one little tiny flower in the corner of that piece. And this is just a repeat of the other three on a smaller scale. You're going to start with the center and work your way outward toward the petals, stippling and softening and letting the paint work its magic on the board. And I don't get real crazy with this flower. It's just a smaller bud, really. And then I add some foliage to it, just as I did the others, with a couple of leaves and all the blending techniques, blending it into the background. Then I add a little bit of yellow into the petals. And now, once the other three are a little more dry, I can add some dots of yellow at the edges of the petals, just a few of them, just to make it slightly more pronounced. Because here's the thing, when you're adding paint wet on wet, you're going to lose the color a little bit. It's going to blend with the other colors that you're trying to add. So if you wait for it to dry just a little bit, the new color that you add on becomes slightly more vivid and it can be seen a little bit more. Hopefully, that makes sense to you. And these small dots are just representative of maybe some pollen that has fallen onto the petals of the flower. Okay, all the dotting is done now, and I slowed this down just a little bit so you can take a second to see what's happening here. Now we're just going to quickly dry it up because I'm going to be doing some hand lettering on that, and I don't want the ink, the pen to interfere with any of the acrylic paint, and it's just a real quick dry. Here I'm pulling out my script liner brushes from Essential Stencil. I love these brushes. I am an Essential Stencil ambassador, and I will link my affiliate link in the description of this video for you if you are interested. They are my favorite brushes of choice, and I recommend them very highly. In that open space that you're seeing here, I'm going to be using Danielle Stringer's Imperfect Dust hand lettering for beginners. And this book is highly recommended. It's how I learned how to do my hand lettering. I am an affiliate with her, and I will also link the affiliate link in the description of this video for you if you're interested in any hand lettering. Danielle offers courses as well, and she's amazing. If you've never seen any of her work, you need to follow her. And here you can see just how pretty it's going to be in that frame. Now I have to kind of map out how much of a lip there is on that frame so that I make sure that the writing that I'm going to put there is going to be seen once it's framed. So I'm just going to use my little ruler as I'm hand lettering just to give me a little guide so that I don't overstep on the margin there. And my hand lettering begins. I'm going to hand letter the phrase, "In the morning when I rise, give me Jesus." Now, a lot of people are under the misconception that hand lettering is handwriting. It is not. It is more of a drawing, each letter individually. It doesn't flow like handwriting does, and all of the traditional handwriting you've been taught throughout the years can get thrown out the window if you're learning hand lettering. It's just different. You lift your pen after each letter, and it's a much more bouncy, free-handed type of writing. You definitely don't want to stay on the lines, and it allows you to fit words in areas you might not with traditional writing. Here is where I'm laying down what Danielle calls the bones of the writing. I'm using a Tombow pen, Tombow. I get them on Amazon. You can get them in black or navy. And I like to do the bones of the writing with these pens. They work well over acrylic, and I can go back in with a paintbrush, or um, Posca paint pen works really well with that. So that's the second step. Right now, we're just doing the beginning part. In the morning when I rise, give me Jesus. And what a perfect way to start every day. Here I've flipped the camera so that you can see how it's done with the hand lettering. I'm trying to bring it in a little closer for you. Now this part takes a little bit of practice. You just have to keep in mind that all of your downstrokes, anything that you're going to go down with, is going to be thickened. All of your upstrokes are going to be thinner. So you're going to go back over the bones of your writing, and you're going to thicken up the downstrokes, or you can just take your pen and make a little line where you can go back and fill it in later so that you can thicken it. And then you can just darken the upstrokes. So that's what I'm doing here. Now, a lot of people will say, well, do you thicken the line in front of the letter or on the other side of the letter? I say thicken the line wherever you've left space enough to do so. And here's the thing, if you leave a big enough space in between your letters, you should be able to go in and thicken those downstrokes with no problem. Now this was tight quarters, so my letters were a little bit closer than I would have liked them to be, but we made it happen. And you can kind of see what I'm doing here. I'm just, every downstroke is thickened, every upstroke is just darkened. And I don't want to make the video go any faster than this, because then you're not going to be able to see how I did it. The video speed on this is twice as fast as I actually did it. So you can imagine the time it takes to do hand lettering. You want to take your time with it. There's no rush. It's actually very cathartic for me. I enjoy hand lettering just as much as I do painting. It did take me some practice and some doing to get even this far in my hand lettering journey, but I really do enjoy it. It's very relaxing. And once you have the skill, it is a great tool to pull out and use for um, making gifts for people, signs, and actually, I made my daughter and son-in-law's wedding sign on a big piece of glass. I painted for them and hand lettered, and it turned out so beautiful. You'll find it useful in all kinds of things, doing addressing for weddings and events and things like that. And when I was practicing it, I would use it just for practice in my daily devotion. So I would write in my devotional. There's a little place in the margin to write, and I would do it all in hand lettering. And every single time I had an opportunity to do any kind of penmanship or writing of any kind, even if it was a check, I would write in hand lettering. Any kind of birthday card, greeting, anything like that, I would do hand lettering. Even in my packages that I would mail in my business, I would sometimes, if I had the time, I would write the names of the people in hand lettering. So I would get practice, and that's how you get good with practice with anything, right? The old adage, practice makes perfect. Well, I don't know that this is perfect, but it's a lot better than I started, that's for sure. And you can do it too. Trust me, if I can do it, you can do it. Now, I made the name Jesus separate from the rest of the quote. I wanted it to stand out a little bit. And in Danielle's workbook, there's different types of fonts that you can choose from. So you can choose from that, or you can go online and you can look for different types of hand lettering fonts and just choose one that you like the best and play with it. Different fonts sometimes for different purposes. Something like this, it required more of a flourishy kind of a font, and some will require just some print type of font. And in that case, you can do a sans serif type font where you have the little serif lines at the top and the bottom of the lettering. Okay, now let's flip this camera back and back. You got to flip it upside down and the other way so you guys can read it both ways. There we go. And this is what we have. Now, as I said, there's going to be a lot of additions to this in the end. There'll be shading and shadowing and all sorts of things that you're going to see in the finished product that I did off camera. But this is the basics of how you would do a muted, ethereal looking floral painting. And you don't even have to add the hand lettering if you don't want to. If you're not good at hand lettering, you could choose a font on your computer and run a piece of rice paper or tissue paper through and Mod Podge that onto your piece, whatever you're comfortable with. It appears I had a bit of a problem getting the board back into the frame, and it was because it makes a difference if it's upside down or not, apparently. If at first you don't succeed, try again, right? Okay, check out the finished product here. As I said, finishing touches make all the difference, and it looks quite different in the end. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure you like, subscribe, and follow at Bellalina Boutique. Okay, so as I said, it looks quite different with the finishing touches. I've darkened and deepened the roses, added some shadowing, and even added some points to the petals. Layer upon layer, this is what it became. And I think it looks super cute with the shabby chic frame. And here's a very similar piece I did with gold metallics all along the edge. Thanks for watching.